Okay, so we're preparing to do an engine coolant flush and change, and after consulting the original owner's manual for the 2003 ZX6R, this basically just says to keep it full, which is pretty well useless. So after digging on the forums for a moment, I found a PDF repair manual, and we'll search here, and I recommend that you do the same for your make and model of motorcycle. Okay, so after control Fing a few keywords like antifreeze and engine coolant, I came across this section where we find that we need to remove drain plug B and A in these two diagrams, and we need to take note of these two locations. Also, we need to take note of the torque spec that we need to retighten them to following the procedure. And it looks like the drain plug at the water pump is 12 Newton meters or 106 inch-pounds, and the coolant drain plug on the cylinder is 10 Newton meters or 89 inch-pounds. I would suggest referencing your user manual to see what is specified for your specific bike, but this is you would follow the same procedure. You can also read through this and get a detailed breakdown of the steps to take to complete this task. But of course, I will walk you through these, and yours will be very similar. Okay, so we're back out here with the motorcycle, and we're going to do the coolant change. Well, coolant drain and then change, I guess. So per the user manual, we have to start by removing the radiator cap, which is found here, and that will relieve the back pressure that is developed whenever you drain the coolant from coolant plug B located here and coolant plug A located at the bottom of the water pump right here. So I think the strategy for this is going to be to remove the lower one, the lower plug on the water pump first with the radiator cap off, and this one second. I think that's the strategy that I'm going to use. Once that is done, you can see here I've got this cruddy looking coolant in the overflow. The weird discolored portion in the bottom is common for the 0304 ZX6R. It is apparently a liner that was in the radiator. It dissolves quickly, and then it ends up developing as you see here. So this is totally factory. So this has never been done before, and that's exactly why we're going to do it. And then secondly, it's because we can't run this particular coolant on the track, so we're going to go with engine ice, which is an approved coolant for track use. So that's why we're doing this. So with that said, let's remove the radiator cap, followed by the drain plugs, and we'll get this thing flowing. Okay, so removing the radiator cap is fairly simple. You may have to remove some of the covers that are here. I think it was top cover A is what they called this in the manual. But that helps you just gain some access to the radiator cap. And this is removed by twisting counterclockwise until it stops, and then pushing down and turning counterclockwise a little bit more. And then it should lift right off. In this case, this being totally factory, this is a really good sign. It is totally full and actually looks very good. There's no milkiness to it, which would be a sign of oil contaminating this, which might be a sign of a head gasket leak, something of that nature. But this looks very good, so happy to see this. So now we'll go to the other side and we'll take the drain plugs out. Okay, so we're back on the left-hand side of the bike, and we're going to remove the drain plug from the water pump, and going to mention again that the radiator cap is off, and this is where you want to be a little bit careful, because I'm not sure how much pressure is on this system. I mean, it's potential due to gravity, but this could come out quite a distance, so we're going to loosen this, but we're going to be ready with our catch pan. Alright. Yeah, as you can see, it can come out quite a distance. But whenever we loosen the head pressure, we'll be able to set our catch pan down. Also, you can flush the system and reuse your coolant if you wish. However, in this case, even though the coolant looks very clean, this isn't a coolant that we can run on the track. So we're switching to engine ice, so therefore I'm using an old oil catch pan, which will contaminate the coolant, but I am going to dispose of it anyhow, so this doesn't really matter too much. For being 17-year-old coolant, it does look very good. Since that's calmed down, we're going to go ahead and remove the cylinder drain plug. Overshot my pan there a little bit. You can expect that a little bit in cases like this. One thing to keep in mind is that antifreeze is very corrosive. It will eat through paint like no one's business, so if you get it on any fairings or any coated surface on the frame, be sure to wipe it up pretty quickly. Otherwise it could damage your finish. So once this is done dripping for a minute, I'm going to snug the drain plugs back up. I'm going to take this and fill it up with water. I'm going to do this a few times to flush it. Also, since that's the case, the reservoir will also have to be completely removed and flushed and rinsed out. Okay guys, so removing the reservoir or the overflow tank is fairly straightforward on this particular model. Let me grab a light real quick. Okay, so we can see it's located here on the inside of the frame on the left-hand side. It's held on by two Phillips screws. You can see the black one up in there. And then also up on top, that screw right there. And this is the reason why you might have to take your fuel tank off in order to complete this job. So we're going to go ahead and do that, remove the tank, and flush it out as well. Okay, so I got the two fasteners out, and I wanted to make note of one thing. You're going to have to pay attention to the routing of your hoses. So in this case, we have a hose at the top of the tank, and this is our overflow for our reservoir. And it'll typically run down the side of the engine and dump out the bottom. So just take a note of where yours runs. And also the tank is filled by a second hose that comes out the bottom of the tank. Let me see if I can show you. Can you see it down there? Yeah, there it is. And it runs down along the back side of the engine and around this side of the frame up to the top right here of your radiator. And that's how that tank is filled. So we're going to want to take this hose off at the radiator because it could potentially have coolant in it as well. So we're going to have to take it off here and pay attention to the routing of the hose and make sure that all of it is rinsed thoroughly. Okay, so on second thought, on the reservoir, since I have to take the hose lower than the reservoir to get it underneath the frame. I think I'm going to try to drain it while it's sitting in the bike into this drain pan. So we're going to try that real quick. And you might do the same. It could save you a mess. And it looks like that's exactly what it did. So we're going to let this drain completely, and then we'll try to remove the tank. And we're gonna rinse it with water. Okay, guys. So I've put about a gallon of distilled water through this at this point, and what I found was the first time I flushed it, I put both of the drain plugs in, the one at the water pump and the one on the cylinder, and I filled the entire system up. And you want to squeeze on the hoses a little bit to push the air out of them and to fully fill the radiator. And then I went ahead and removed the drain plug on the water pump and let it flush out, and it was fairly green. I did this again and let it drain out the bottom one more time. Put the plug back in, filled it up again, and let took the drain plug off the cylinder, and it was quite green at that point as well. So I flushed it at the top a few more times until it was clear, and then drained it all out the bottom, and now we're good to go. So I went ahead and I put the reservoir back in, and we're going to go ahead and fill this up with coolant. Okay guys, so I was really struggling with the lighting last night, so I waited till the day to finish this project. So we're ready to fill the cooling system with our new coolant, and in this case we're going to go with engine ice, and this is what's going to be required if you want to do any track days. This is a coolant that is let's see, I believe it's propylene glycol based as opposed to ethylene glycol, which is your base in the green antifreeze that comes factory. This stuff isn't nearly as slick. It's biodegradable, pet friendly, it's non-toxic, these sorts of things. So this is what you're going to be required to use on track. So this is what we're going to use, since I do plan to run a couple track days with this bike. So the process starts whenever you're done flushing the system. You're going to have to go ahead and take your radiator cap back off if it's not already off. Let's try to open the coolant real quick. See what we got here. We are sealed up. So, all right. Okay, just remove the seal. And you're going to want to grab you a funnel. Now, I cleaned this thing up last night. You want to make sure that your funnel is free of any debris or oil residue or any other contaminant. But yeah, any funnel will do. Make yourself some room. And just go ahead and slowly pour your coolant into the radiator. Now you want to listen. The sound will get a higher pitch whenever you approach the top of the spout. So you can listen for clues, and you can also visually inspect every now and then. But what you're looking to do, and we're getting close, I don't know if you can see in there or not, we're getting close to the top. And we don't quite want to fill it all the way yet. because we're going to want to squeeze on the cooling lines to push some air out. And if our coolant is at the top of the spout, it will push coolant out and onto our floor. Okay, so I can visually see that I have coolant towards the top of the radiator. Now this cooling line, it runs close to the top itself, so we're going to have to burp it later on. But we've got, actually we can leave that sitting there. We have cooling lines on the other side that are much lower. So we can go ahead and give this guy a few squeezes. And you should be able to feel the air pushing out. You may hear some gurgling. Just give it a few squeezes. Try to get that guy to bleed out nicely. Also on the other side of your water pump, you'll find another hose. You want to give it a few squeezes as well. Alright, now we're going to go back over and continue filling. Take a look real quick. The fluid level is much lower at this point. Okay, I can hear it approaching the top. So we're going to take a look. Okay, the coolant is right at the edge of the spout, so we're going to give this line a few squeezes to try to bleed it. And what you're trying to do is push air out of the low points here. See how it's low here, so you may have fluid here, but you may have air trapped up in this area. So you're just trying to squeeze it a few times, try to get it to work in. And I do note a slight reduction in the coolant level, so we'll go ahead and add a little bit more. Okay, we'll take a look. And we're relatively full. We'll go around and give the lines a few more squeezes. See if we can't work a little more air out. Okay. We'll check the coolant level one more time. And it has not reduced level by much at all. So we'll top it off. And that looks pretty full. Last thing you want to do is fill your coolant reservoir somewhere between the low and full mark. So we'll take our cap off, we'll grab up our funnel, and we will fill the coolant reservoir. And we have a little bit that has splashed down our overflow, and that's okay. But as you can see, we're down on the low end. I'm going to go ahead and fill it a little bit more because I am willing to bet there's a little bit of air in the lines. And whenever we run this thing and send it through a heat cycle, we're going to use a little bit of this. So I'm going to fill it somewhere between the full and low mark. So here we've got the low mark, here we've got the high mark. We are right in between, maybe a little bit above the center mark, but that's going to be perfect for us. So we are going to call this full, and going to put our cap back on our reservoir. And this guy is ready to have the fuel tank reinstalled, and we need to run it with the cap off of the radiator to let the air bleed out. So that's our next step to complete our engine coolant replacement. Okay, so now we have the fuel tank back on, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that our radiator cap is off. I'm not sure exactly why I put this back on to begin with. Anyway, make sure it's off. And you want to start the motorcycle and let it run. Some time. This is going to spin the water pump up, and you're going to watch in here for bubbles. And whenever it stops bubbling, you know you can brand your air out. So we're going to let this work. Okay, so I've let this run for a while, and I got it to 180 degrees, and I got it off the center stand and topped off the radiator. Now I want to make a note of something real quick. And I was wrong in what I said earlier. You want to fill your reservoir, maybe not even to the low line. I don't, you know, so basically your radiator is going to push some fluid out and fill this a little bit more. So I kind of messed up a little bit in the sense that I filled it a little bit too full to begin with. So that is one caveat. It wasn't explicit in the repair manual, and I misstated, so that's my bad, guys. Anyway, whenever you put fluid in your overflow, don't overfill it. Like, leave it at the low mark to start with. So I learned from my mistake here. This one is it's pretty full now. So, but we're gonna run it and see. We're going to run it with the radiator cap on and see where we end up, and see if we need to remove any. So we're going to do that real quick. Okay, so we've allowed this thing to get up to operating temp, and the fans are kicking on and off at the appropriate time. Right now, it's the fans are on and it's cooling. The fans just kicked off, and the temperature will rise and they'll kick back on. It seems to be working as it should. So we're going to go ahead and turn it off now. And we're going to let it cool, and then we're going to check our coolant one more time. I'd like to note that after all of this, whenever the bike is fully upright, we are just at or just below the full mark on our reservoir. So this is perfect so far. We're going to check to see what is in the radiator once it cools, and we may have to top it off. We'll just have to see whenever this thing cools. But for now, it's just a waiting game, so we'll check it here in a bit. Okay guys, so we've let the engine cool back down. We're about 130 degrees, and we're going to take the radiator cap off and take a look at where our coolant level is. And I don't know if you can tell or not. The lighting's terrible, and I apologize for that. But the coolant is right at the top of the spout there, so we are good to go. We're going to put the radiator cap back on, and we're going to go around to the other side and take a look at the coolant overflow. We will tip the bike up into a neutral position, and we will note that our fluid level is maybe 3/8 of an inch below the full mark. So this is perfect. We are good to go, guys. So the only thing that's left to do is put them fairings back on and grab a brewski, man. We are done. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.